And I think that's the hard part to get over it, is how long you lived with something feeling normal while also feeling abnormal. And I'm so glad that you were the one there to tell that to, because being able to do that has really set me down the path of healing that I think I needed.
We used to be kids. Now we're not. Something happened in between. This is the Broken Youth Club.
Warm immediately.
Yeah.
And so I think at that point you were just kind of like talking to me about your mom's boyfriend. And then you kind of just started slowly telling me about like when your parents got divorced, and you just kind of went into it, I think.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the Broken Youth Club. I'm Logan.
I'm Kate.
And we really don't know how to start these things. So I think we're going to start these shows just talking like we normally do. And I think that's the premise of this show. The spirit of the show is just kind of getting in on the midnight talks that we like to have. And since we've moved out to Washington now from Indiana a few years ago, there's no family out here. It's really hard for us to find the time to be together and to talk away from the kids.
Yeah.
And so this is a good way for us to have these long midnight therapeutic talks and force ourselves into doing it. Because every time we do, we always say, we should do this more. We really should make more time. Because I always come away feeling better after we talk. And I think in starting this show and developing the through line to where we are now, it became more and more clear that the spirit of the show is just about talking. And I think that was something that you had kind of put together. And I knew it was about recovering from trauma. And like specifically for me, childhood trauma, but for you, through this journey of starting this, I think you realized you maybe have more trauma than you maybe had realized.
Yeah. I think I had a lot of things happen during my like critical moments of development into a young lady. And those things I'm still trying to actively undo, unlearn. And then even since having kids and things that I have been very intentionally doing differently than my parents, I think kind of spoke to, these moments where I felt like my parents did the best. They thought they were doing the best that they could. And I think that they had parents that spoke to them in ways that then was being replicated. And I'm very actively trying to break that. And then I feel like a lot of my trauma and stuff has just happened even into motherhood, into adulthood, and trying to balance all of that and not lose myself in the process.
Yeah. So I think in this show, we're going to do our best each week to just address different aspects of our childhood. I think sometimes it'll lean into exploring trauma, and I think sometimes it'll lean into just being nostalgic and feeling good. I think the show's the pilot. This is the pilot. The test audio that we sat down and did. We did like 2 of them.
Yeah.
We had no script, not even really any beats. We just started off with a random question, and we were able to go like we always do for about an hour, and we stopped and tested it out and saw where we were at, and we really liked the fluid nature of it. So I don't think up top we're going to give you any more than a general what we're trying to accomplish throughout the episode. And if we get there, that's awesome. If we don't, I think the bottom line is that we talked and that there was some connection.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, your life was so different than mine up until we got into our relationship, and then trying to learn how you maneuver through things versus how I do. And then, I mean, even as adults, you know, we've both had counselors, we've both had therapists. And it felt like at a certain point, it was just, if we could sit down and talk together,
Yeah.
then it felt like this really safe space. Nobody cares about my well-being more than you do,
Yeah.
and vice versa. So it just felt like it was a way for us to get really close and really understand where we're coming from. And I think that it, you know, it all kind of happened during these moments when we were in kind of rougher parts of our marriage and kind of trying to figure out, you know, our kids were getting older, and trying to figure out why we weren't on the same page with certain things.
Yeah.
And so I think really digging back into what we were doing when we were kids and how our parents were, you know, treating us or mistreating us, really played into then what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
And the things that maybe I was doing that made you uncomfortable, or things that you were doing that made me uncomfortable when it came to parenting our own kids.
Yeah. Well, I think we're, specifically you and me, are in such a unique position in the fact that we've been together for 17 years, going on 18, 17 and a half, right?
Yeah.
And I asked Kate out in high school when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
I was a fresh 15-year-old.
Fresh 15.
I was only 15 for like literally a month.
Yeah.
A little over a month. And I think that's a story for another time. But it was a very John Hughes boombox over the head moment.
Yeah.
And every time I tell that story, people are like, it's almost like too much cheese on that burger.
Yeah. It was corny in the moment also.
Yeah.
But you know,
it's still a story
landed.
that I'm happy, and I'll tell it. But as soon as you said, there was, and it was different with you for sure. Like, I had girlfriends, not many because I was a nerd. Surprise. But yeah, like you said, I wanted everything to do with you.
Yeah.
Because for the first time, I had found, you said I didn't really know what home was. And I know, looking back, when I say that, it is, I felt like I had a couple places that I lived that felt as close to home as I could make it.
Yeah.
But the fact that I moved so much growing up, there was a period, again, like when we lived in Greene County, Indiana, I was there for, several years. I would say that was a good chunk.
Sure.
But, basically once I hit late elementary school, I moved so much. At one point when we were in college, I had moved like over 25 times in my life. I had tallied it up. And I'm not even a military brat. Like, when we
You're
would,
bouncing around the same 30 miles.
Exactly. I'm not even going across the state. I'm
Yeah.
going a county or two over, or back, and then sometimes even back into the same house. Sometimes it was a trailer. I had so many different homes that I wasn't able to plant, I think, especially when it counted. That's why I say, like, I know when I was younger, I was able to make some memories, like playing in the woods and, knowing the layout of one of my childhood homes. I do have some of that, but I just have never really had a single place that I could say, as an adult, this is where I get to go back to. I have my grandparents' cabin.
Right.
I think that is the most place now, but even now, I mean, my grandparents are gone. All my aunts and uncles on that side are gone, and it kind of feels kind of ghostly to go there. But yeah, I remember being with you. It was pretty early on, because I remember saying that too.
Yeah.
But it truly felt like you guys, you would have your meals every fucking night. And you had your routine, and it felt just so like, this is what I felt like I was missing. And you guys taught, the big thing for me, the culture shift in coming into your household, was that you guys talked about everything. You said your feelings.
We do.
And that's something we just never did. And so that was the big thing that you and I had to learn, just communication wise, as to how to communicate together.
Right. Well, and I mean, in contrast, I grew up in the same home my entire life. My parents moved there before I was born, lived there still.
Still there today.
Lives there.
And it looks pretty much the same. I mean, it did a renovation back when Was that high school or
Yeah,
college?
so I think it was early high
Yeah,
school.
but still a while back.
But yeah, so we didn't move around, and we
Mhm.
absolutely had a routine.
You
And
have the property on your arm as a
I
tattoo.
do,
Like
I do.
that's cool. I wish I
Yeah,
had. I mean, again, my grandparents' cabin. I could probably do something like that, but
yeah,
it was also, again, sorry to cut you off. It was going back to, it was more than just the home, is what your family did with the home. It was, your dad had his wood piles, you had the fireplace and the chair next to it, that again, that chair was there before you were born.
right,
And being able to just be a part of something that is so concrete in time is comforting.
right.
And that's what I was able to get a piece of comfort of that, I think, in high school.
Well, and I think that, I mean, more than anything, my family, there is a lot of stability. My parents not only lived in the same home always, but my parents have been married they've never divorced. Both sets of my grandparents stayed married, never divorced.
That's so wild.
So we came from this very stable, I call it stable, but there were obviously like shaky moments, but it was, you could always count on these people being together, right?
Especially relative to fucking everybody else you encounter.
Right. Yeah. I didn't have a lot of friends that had parents that were still together.
Mm-hmm.
And so you and I were so different in so many ways when it comes to just like what we even expect from relationships. And I mean, I feel like for a while there, you were so afraid that I was just going to leave.
Yeah.
Because you
I'd found
experienced
something.
so much of that.
Yeah.
And for me, I couldn't understand that because I'm like, I'm still here, you know? Like, so I think for us, it was just, there were so many big, big differences between our upbringing and the life that we were living when we met each other that caused a little bit of like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Because I felt like you were so, you were so like just cool, like nails in me all the time. Like you just wanted to be
I wanted
right
everything
there.
to do with every part of you.
Yeah. And it was
like
weird.
it was truly like my first experience of like a drug. Like or truly that love is a drug thing. When I would go home and lay in my bed in that trailer, there was a mattress on the floor, a TV on a thing. Like there was nothing in that room. I didn't have posters on the wall. I would just think about the next day to where I get to see you again. Like truly.
Well, and I think within that first year of us dating, your mom moved 2 or 3 times at least. Mm-hmm. Your dad moved 3 times.
Yeah.
No, 4 times. 4. Well, literally within the first year to year and a half that we dated.
It's like every couple months.
So it was, it was just this wild, you were almost just this like adventure to me. I was like, what are you going to tell me next?
It's so
Who's
wild
with
because
who? Where are you
always
moving?
felt so boring.
Yeah, no.
Still feel kind of boring.
It's like, oh my gosh. And then, I mean, my parents, I have one sister. She's my full sister. We have lived together forever. And we talked about everything until we were blue in the face. Yeah. If someone had an issue, you knew about it. You talked about it. You worked it out. You moved on. You didn't repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah.
And I remember really struggling with that with you because I felt like my expectations from what I have from people is very much just like be upfront with me. Just let me know what's up. Right. And if there's a problem, I'd love to talk about it. And then we'll move past it. And it felt like there were a lot of times when you would tell me about stuff happening at home. And I was like, well, what did they say about that? And you're like, well, I didn't say anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? You didn't say anything. Yeah. That was wild to me. This idea that y'all didn't speak your minds. There was just a lot of like, we're going to brush it under the rug and brush under the rug. And it just created this, this almost resentment that I carried for both of your parents for a long time, where it just felt like, for me, that communication is so important. And it shows that you care, that you're willing to have those like hard conversations, or you're willing to apologize, or you're willing to do these things. And it felt like you didn't have very many examples of that. And so instead you just had to like swallow it a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And that was difficult. And then when we started like really getting to know each other, and you started telling me about your stepdad that you had for the majority of your childhood and kind of what happened there, it just kind of built this wall for me when it came to making relationships with your family that we struggled with up until literally like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I don't know, like how much you want to talk about your relationship with your stepdad on this pilot episode.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we'll go, there's so much to go into.
Yeah.
There truly is.
Truly.
But yeah, I mean, my mom divorced my dad when I was like a baby. I was like 1. And she married a dude who they went to high school with both. And it was tumultuous the whole time. He was a greasy mechanic, and he was a super alcoholic, an abusive alcoholic. And that was one of the big catalysts of, I think one of the 2 catalysts of this show, and like me breaking down and telling you about my life. And I think the Darren, the abusive stepfather angle, was something you knew about early
on. Yeah.
And he I think enjoyed the role of disciplinarian. And we had the belt situation, and I got my ass whipped and lit up all the time to where, it hurt to sit down. One of the big things for me was when I was in elementary school I think we did this in like the 2nd and 3rd grade. Yeah, 2nd and 3rd grade. Remember those like lenticular agendas that you would get? Isn't that what they were called?
Yeah, where you can like run your fingers on them and they make that noise.
And so I was so out of hand that they had to have this special deal with my school and my teacher.
Well, why were you out of hand?
I have ADHD.
You have ADHD.
I have diagnosed ADHD.
Absolutely.
And it was pretty...
had ADHD.
It's always been pretty, intense when I was younger as far as the hyperactive part.
Yeah.
Where my brain just doesn't shut off. My motor skills don't shut off. I'm a drummer for a reason.
Yeah, you have always been just kind of like moving around.
Yeah. I mean, my feet are always tapping, and it's like some people rock. I've had a couple friends who like, they will get in their recliner on purpose, or another friend who would do it when he would drive.
Yeah.
And I think that is it is a rhythmic thing that keeps my motor going. I don't know. I've always had it, even before I had a drum set. And so I know I was a lot. But that got translated into, I would have to present my book to my teacher at the end of every day, and she would have to score me from 0 to 10. And I remember when I first started that, I could not pull a fucking 7 to save my life. Oh yeah, and then the cutoff was if I got a 7 or below. Oh no, I think it was the 6 or below. I'm sorry, I'm so fuzzy on that now that I say that. 6 or below or 7 or below, it equaled an ass whipping when I got home.
Yeah.
Pants down, across the lap, a belt across my ass, or a switch, but it was normally a belt. He would use his hand too. I think he liked that. Did he make
you go like pick your own branch? Did he?
No, we never really did branches. I think maybe a couple times. I remember going over to my cousin's house. This is another just random story, but I remember he like stabbed a hole in his trampoline for some reason. And I remember my Uncle Randy made him go pick out a switch then, old school style. And I watched him get his ass lit up. But yeah, it was like this. And we were mentioning this the other day, that I'm sure part of it came from the fact that he came from the generation where this is like a tough love thing. I have to do this to straighten you out because I quote unquote love you. But I just don't think there was any introspection there. And if there was, he didn't do anything about it, because this continued, for years,
Right.
And yeah, like I said, I could not get above the threshold to just basically be okay in my home when I got home. And the thing was, my mom was growing up, she was in nursing school. And so she would always leave, like 5:00, at least for a handful. I did clarify that with her. It was only like 3 or 4 years that she did that, but it felt like fucking 10.
Yeah.
So I'd get home and it would just be mom, but there would be this period of wait till Darren gets home, like he's gonna have to, like, those are the rules, and I would be in this like shivering fear sometimes, knowing like, I know what's coming. Like, I know what's coming, and there's nothing you can do about it. And maybe he'll have mercy on you. Maybe he had a good day. But again, homie was an alcoholic. So, and I don't know how many people alcohol brings out the anger, but sure did with him. And he didn't hit me like a kid. He hit me like at least a teenager. Like, he hit me with force. And, yeah, I would say it wasn't fun. I don't know where to really go with that, but yeah, he's no longer here. He died last year, right?
Last year.
And I cut him out when I went to college. He tried a couple times because my mom married him. They divorced when I was in elementary school, and then they remarried for like,
it was less than a year.
Yeah, like 9 months,
which
6
was
months.
so weird because we were dating and your mom was dating somebody else. And then I came over to your grandparents because y'all were living there.
Yeah.
And I remember we were just riding around in the yard on the golf cart and you were like, hey, so guess what? And I'm like, oh my God, what? I'm like, I always love the tea and you've always got something going on. So I'm like, what?
I'm going to check something. Keep going.
And you were like, mom broke up with the guy she was dating and she is engaged to Darren. Yeah. And I'm like, they weren't even dating. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And everything I had heard about Darren was awful. This dude was terrible to you, terrible to your mom, terrible to your brother, terrible to your sister, like terrible to everyone. And then within a couple months, they were married again. And it was terrible the whole time. You moved again into a house that was pretty cool. I liked that house a lot. But he was awful to you.
The one on Hillside. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a cool
house. And then
house.
It was a very cool house. And then whenever they got divorced again, because he was still being terrible to your mom and terrible to everyone, then he like stole the battery out of your truck and threatened to beat your ass and like all this random weird stuff. He was just such an awful, awful person. And I think that, again, one of those things that really made it hard for me to want to have a relationship with your mom for a long time was even hearing you talk about her seeing those scores and being like, oh, wait till Darren gets home. And it's like, why? Why would you let somebody else, why would you let anyone first do that to your kid?
Yeah.
But also, why let your husband do that? That's not your dad. And let it get to this like extreme place. You know, it wasn't a simple you're grounded or that was naughty or you don't get to have dessert. It's like, I literally can't sit down for days because it hurts so bad.
I've thought about that because, I think from my mom's standpoint, and I don't want to speak for her, but if I had to guess, she was also in an abusive relationship.
Correct.
And so my hypothesis on that is she also had to fall in line with Darren to an extent.
Right.
And if she were to, I don't know, put her foot down and say like, I don't think we should be disciplining this way. I don't know what he would do to her behind closed doors. I don't want to insinuate anything, but the dude wasn't a good dude. And he did spend time behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that, you know, as an adult now, I can see that. As someone who does have a good relationship with your mom now, I can see that. I can sympathize with it. But when we're dating and I'm 16, 17, even all the way up through having Oliver and thinking, I would never let someone do that to me. Well, I've never been in an abusive relationship. So I can't speak to what that's like. And I can only imagine how awful that is. And especially when you're with someone that you need to be with financially. If it's somebody that is helping you, pay the bills and help raise the kids so that they have,
Yeah.
A mom and a dad in the house with them, or,
Mhm.
whatever people were looking for in the 90s or the early 2000s that they were willing to, I don't want to say willing to, but that they thought they needed to have their kids grow up into being happy, healthy adults.
Yeah.
I truly believe your mom was trying to give you those things.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
No,
why we're
yeah.
able to have a relationship now.
Yeah.
But when we were younger, I was like, who is this person?
I know. I'm sure it was hard to see from my mom's perspective, when you're a kid. But like I said the other day, my mom did the single parent thing even when she was married to Darren.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, even when she was married to my dad too, they were kids. I on one hand, you can't blame them for it not working out. They weren't set up for it to work out.
Right.
So I don't blame them for that. I truly don't. But I think what I do blame them for as their son is how they treated each other for years. And I think if they both were to look back on that and were honest with themselves, they would agree. And I think had they been able to co-parent better, I think things would be a little different.
Right.
But even there's no animal. Well, I don't want to say that. I don't know what they got going on. But as far as like, it used to be like hearing the other parent's name was this like, you could hear the venom in the air.
Right.
But now it's like, I think they've just gotten so far beyond that. My dad is in a marriage now for several years since we were in high school.
Yeah.
And then my mom is in a new relationship of, I think they're going on a couple years now, right?
I think they have been a couple years.
Yeah. My mom was after divorcing Darren the second time, that's when her like strong, independent woman like really solidified, I think.
Right.
And no man was good enough. And I remember that where she had a handful of boyfriends, but they just literally, she would tell me they just didn't cut it. They weren't caliber enough because my mom was always gone to school or worked at the hospital. Like since I was a kid, like that's what she does. She was a medical professional and she dedicates her time to her field and her patients. And when it's not that, it's her kids. And my mom is at a time in her life is like, if you can't fucking get with that program, then I want nothing to do with you. And I think you ask anybody, people who work with her, friends, family, anybody, my mom has a very, strong woman and like, has a very strong presence about her. I think when you engage with her.
It does feel like, though, the last few years, your mom has softened a bit. And I don't know if it's...
Well, I think yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if it's because I remember at one point she mentioned that she was also talking to a therapist. Yeah. And I think especially during the time we had maybe like a year where we didn't have a lot of contact.
Yeah, about that.
Which I know was really hard for all of us.
Yeah.
But I do think that it gave all of us some time to like breathe and think about what life would be like if the other person truly wasn't in it ever again. And like, what are you willing to do to fix the relationship?
Yeah.
And that's coming from things I needed to do.
Everybody. What does everybody need
everyone.
to do to make sure this is a long thing, something that has longevity?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just my mom. It was also my brother.
Yeah.
And my sister. And we're all in a great place today, I would say. Some of us are still working through, I think, some things.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm happy to be where we are with everyone compared to where we were before. And again, on the show, that's something we're guaranteed to go into.
Yeah. Well, because I really think a lot of the healing when it came to our relationship with your mom, my relationship with your mom specifically, it we have to talk. We have
It's
to have
communication and boundaries.
we have to have some hard conversations that neither one of us are going to like. And we're going to get off the phone and probably still not like it.
Yeah.
But if you have enough of those with someone that you, at the end of the day, really, truly do care about and do want a relationship with, you just have to like wade through the fucking mud for a minute, you know?
It'll suck, but from our perspective, talking is king. And we don't have to be a professional. And I guess I should say that we are not professionals.
No.
We are not giving any sort of like actual professional or medical advice.
Right.
And when we say anything, it is merely from the perspective of this is what we've been through, and this is what has worked for us. And this is what hasn't worked for us.
Yeah.
Because I think, when it comes to like, I used to drink heavy. Now I'm sober. I don't know. I'd have to pull up my app to see where I'm at. I actually enjoy not peeking in on it too often.
Yeah.
I think the big milestones, like the month milestones are great. I think I'm coming up on like 8 or 9, somewhere around there. And what was the point I was making with that?
Well, I think you were just talking about, I don't know.
Oh,
like
shoot.
us going.
This
through-
happens a lot, by the way. I think we should, and that's something I'm working on not beating myself up with, is that, again, going back to my ADHD, the metaphor I always use with you and everybody else, I call it my 13 radios thing. And that is, there's always 13 things that are making noise in a room that I can hear and I can pick up on and I could tune in. I think that's why music comes easy to me. That's why I enjoy editing Scared to Death for Bad Magic, because there's a lot of like, it's a cinematic horror score with like weird thing, and my ear picks up on those things. I have used that quote unquote curse for my career as talents. But it doesn't always shut off. And when I think about thoughts that come into my brain, I always pause, because I have to think about which one I want to grab out of the air. And I can't. And so when I lose a thought, it's long gone and I have no fucking clue where I was. So I usually will speak in the moment. So I hope you're okay with that. But sometimes I'll find my way back.
Yeah.
And we have our shorthand. I'll just say help and you know what I'm looking for. You're pretty good about that usually. But not today.
I try. Sorry.
That's okay. But yeah, I would say, so that was, I think, a good wrap up on the Darren stuff for now. I think there's a lot more, again, that we can go into later.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first part of my life, probably well, I don't say the first part, because I guess the thing I'm wanting to get into is the second thing, I think, that really led to this show.
Yeah. And I think that when we're talking about you being in kind of the depths of your alcoholism, when we first got together, all the way back in high school, you very immediately from the jump were like, hey, I don't want to date if you are somebody that likes to drink or you likes to party. Like, if you like to party,
hard line for me.
Yeah,
really.
Like it's not for me. And I think, I wasn't someone that liked to do that a lot. I wasn't against it, but I wasn't someone that was doing that a lot. But it felt like, because of the things that you had told me about Darren and about him being an alcoholic, it like registered. It was like, okay, I understand that, so I just won't. I don't think that you had your first drink of actual alcohol until after you were legally able to do it. And
on my own volition.
Yeah.
No,
yeah. And that's a whole nother
that's
story.
A whole other thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have an abusive alcoholic stepfather, you're going to have alcohol in your system before you should.
Before you consent to it being in there.
Exactly,
Yes.
yeah.
Unfortunate. We'll get into that. But, and then it kind of just feels like you decided to drink. You decided to try to get yourself drunk during a time when you and I were living apart, because I'm a year older than you. And so I graduated college a year earlier.
Yep.
And I moved for a job. And so I remember you telling me you had just kind of decided that you were going to try to get yourself drunk one night. see how much it took. It ended up
It's very
taking
clinical, like
it ended up taking a lot.
way too much.
And you have always had this like very high tolerance.
Basically to everything too.
Really, truly. And it feels like from there, it really did just kind of spiral immediately.
Yeah.
And I think that you thought you were really great at hiding it. And I always knew what was going on. Even during the moments when you were actively telling me you weren't, I'm like, I know I'm going to find something if I go looking for it.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of felt like, yeah, we had gone through years of this. And it was, I think you were like 28 or 29 before. It was late in the game of our relationship
Before what?
Before you finally broke down and told me more about your childhood than you had ever told me before. And which was so heartbreaking.
I think it was more like 26 or 27. I'm 32.
I know.
It's been a little more than 3 years ago, right?
It was right before we moved out here.
Okay.
It was like the November before we moved out here.
Late 20s. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just remember how heartbreaking it was for me to hear you say it because, in the decade that we've been together up to that point, I always was like, man, Logan truly has had the hardest childhood I could imagine outside of kids who are sexually assaulted. You had all of the other terrible boxes had been checked for you. So the night that you had gotten yourself really, really drunk and then told me about that part, that was like, oh fuck. I don't know how to help you with that. I don't know how to control myself when the person that I love the most tells me those things and tells me the people that did that to you. It just became this whole new space for us where I felt so unprepared and so like I do not know how to help you with this. And that was the first time that I was like, Logan, you have to have a therapist because I don't know what to say to this. And I think maybe also I need to have a therapist because I don't know what to say to you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say the wrong thing ever. And I try to be really careful with how I respond when you tell me things because I don't want it to come off like I'm attacking anybody.
Yeah. No.
But that was hard. So I know you've been really open about it.
Yeah, I've tried
then.
to talk to. It's still something that it gets easier to talk about, and I think that's the big takeaway. I'm tearing up now, but my voice isn't shaking yet. Maybe I'll get through this podcast without crying, but I guess now would be a time to tell y'all that. It's going to be a heavy podcast at times. We're going to get into nostalgia. We're going to get into fun things. Like on our mic test the other day, we were just talking about Disney movies and Nickelodeon, and it was super fun. I think that's a part of the healing process is like weaving that in.
Right.
But yeah, for me, I was just a shell that day. I think that was literally when people look back and think of a rock bottom. That I remember it vividly. It was a rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I just remember getting in the shower and it is tied into my drinking. And this was also right off the back of that multi-million-dollar deal that fell through for us.
That we had put so much money that we did not have into hiring people and trying
and we
to
just
pull
lost
this thing together.
Employees that we had to re-let go. And my dream was crushing. And I just lost a friend. And the only thing that I really had truly was you, the kids, and the house that we were in. I was happy to be in the house we were in.
Well, and our second baby was brand new around that time.
Harlow, yeah.
So it was just.
But I remember it was on my brain. I was angry at my brother. All the conditions were right.
Yeah.
I think. And I just got out of the shower and I had this overwhelming sense that I needed to tell you something I haven't told literally anyone in my life. Not even my mom, I haven't even said it out loud to myself. It's like you don't really even acknowledge it. But it's something that's like when you think about it, it's like, oh yeah. And then you just like put it in the back of your head and then you go about your day. It's like, yeah, that happened. It's how you rationalize it. It's how you move on. And I remember, just being in that state where alcohol was the only thing that truly numbed the daily anxiety of living with all the things. But I think the thing that tipped it over the top was the fact that I was thinking about this shit and I was actively in therapy. So it's like you're opening wounds, you are raw. And I don't want to get, I guess I don't want to be too graphic, but when I was I would say was 5 to 7 ish, is 5 to 8, somewhere around that range. I had a person that my family knows very well, is a family member, sexually assault me on multiple occasions. And it's something that it's kind of normal when you're a kid. And I think that's the hard part to get over it, is how long you've lived with something feeling normal while also feeling abnormal. And I'm so glad that you were the one there to tell that to, because being able to do that has really set me down the path of healing that I think I needed.
Right.
It's not just that, but it is a big part of me. And I think since I've been open on the other podcasts about it, I work for a company called Bad Magic with a comedian named Dan Cummins. It's a super awesome job. I get to do some amazing things, and one of the shows I'm on is like a behind the scenes show. And once I opened up there, I started getting DMs, and we get some emails now, and it's so many other people saying that them hearing me speak about my experience has given them the courage to speak to the people that they love about it. And it's the first step in healing. It truly is. And I don't know where I would be today had I not told you that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like since you opened up about that, I think that you have also allowed yourself to just be so much more vulnerable with me. Because we're truly now in a space of there's no secrets. There's nothing that we don't tell each other, that we don't talk about. And so I think that, it opened up your ability to also just be really honest with me when you're not in a good headspace, if you're really feeling the weight of our life, if you're feeling really anxious, if you feel like your depression has really ramped up, and it has given you kind of like the freedom to be able to lean on me for that. And I feel like for a really long time, you tried to not show that part of you. You tried to hold that in. And I think that you used alcohol to cope with that. And I know that was heavy. You've been the sole breadwinner for our family for almost 10 years. And I know that's a heavy weight. And we just keep having babies. And so that keeps getting heavier. We're done now, though. So thankfully. But it just felt like that night was hard. That was probably the worst night of my life. Just because of kind of the whole, play by play of how all of that went, which I assume at some point we might get into. And it was this terrible, terrible realization about your life that I just really felt I didn't know what to do with. But I'm so thankful that you did tell me about it, because I feel like it just like allowed both of us to really open up about everything that bothers us at this point. My stuff doesn't feel, my stuff isn't that, which makes me struggle sometimes with feeling like my stuff is valid, because it's not.
Well, that's what I've struggled.
What I think is.
That's what I've struggled with as well, because I would also compare my situation with other people that I knew, or in talking to other people through the years. You realize, if I had to categorize my shit versus this person's shit, I shouldn't be complaining.
Yeah.
And it's hard to not naturally feel that. And so I think anyone listening needs to understand, you too, because that was the journey in coming to this pilot here, is that originally the show was going to be a continuation of me talking about my therapy and you being like the supportive wife and helping me through that. But in doing that, you realized that you have things yourself that need attention. And the Broken Youth Club was a moniker that I had come up with, because I actually came up with it about this time that I had told you, 5 years ago, whatever ago.
Yeah.
And it's because I wanted to make a clothing line out of it. And I wanted to use a clothing line as the vehicle to have this message of, solidarity and community. The same thing we're trying to do here. And
know that your broken youth is yours, and it is valid and heavy for you. And my broken youth is also valid, and it was heavy for me, and it's something that I still
you don't need to have
really
suffered sexual assault. You don't need to have been, beaten by a parent. We all have different things that can at least damage a kid's development.
Right. And then we still, for whatever reason, because it feels very rude, we still grow up and have responsibilities, and we're like, but wait, we haven't even figured out what went wrong, why we feel the way we feel sometimes, what's going on. There's so many times I look around and I'm like, I cannot believe I wake up in a house that we're responsible paying for and we have kids that I have to feed.
Well, yeah, that's where the tagline came from. I didn't even mean to. I was just trying to make a Facebook post about the very early stages of this, and it just came, but it became the tagline, which is, we used to be kids and now we're not. Something happened in between. And I think the show is about analyzing that in between, that little dash.
Yeah.
And because I'm a firm believer that you're not a kid and then you grow up into an adult. I think you're a kid, and like a video game, you just add on things that make you a much more advanced thing, but your core character is still the same character. I'm still a kid, and that kid is inside me. And so when I address the trauma of telling you about my sexual, and I say sexual assault, but I don't know what connotations that carries with other people, but for me, it was rape. It was not just some touching, you know what I mean? It was a SVU episode, it was, for me.
Yeah.
And for anybody out there, if it is just if it isn't penetration or whatever, there is still a boundary of your humanness that was crossed.
Right.
And I think the only other I was trying to think about this the other day. The only other thing in life I think that has come even close to that was when our house got robbed there on Kinzer in Bloomington.
Yeah.
And at first it sounded, that's a little silly, but I think that even just that, again, if you were robbed in a traumatic way, your house was broken into and all your stuff was lit on fire, whatever, there is a sense of that is your your safety and security. It's your personal space. It's your comfort. And someone is violating that. And then and I remember you crying in that moment of realizing it because you didn't know how to feel.
Yeah.
And I remember it hitting my brain of like, that is exactly what feeling violated feels like, is not knowing how to feel after being violated. And I remember, I don't know, as a woman, you have a different experience on this earth than I do. And I don't know how much, I don't want to like lob up a ball for you to have to swing at. So I'll let you speak on whatever you want to speak on. But again, you have a different experience about being objectified, or, predatory behavior, etc.
And I mean, I have never been raped, but I absolutely have been touched when I didn't want to. I have been rubbed down in ways that I'm actively trying to get you to stop doing that. And that person would not stop doing that. I had to physically get up and leave.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have had those, and it's funny when that was happening to me, which was basically as an adult, but I'm like at this adult sleepover and everybody else is like sleeping and this dude will not stop touching me. And I'm like pushing his hands away and he won't stop. And I'm literally like, stop it. And he won't stop. I remember laying there and thinking like, oh my gosh, this is happening. I can't, like, what do I do? There was this like fear of just like, am I supposed to, what do? I don't want to say anything too loud. Like I was still worried about embarrassing this dude in front of the other people that were with us because they were my friends. They absolutely would have been like, what are you doing? But in that moment, I still just had this, I didn't want to say anything. So I just was like trying to get him to stop. And I remember later feeling like I'm a loud supporter for women. Like, please do what you need to do to feel safe and secure. And I'm like always there if you need somebody. And I felt like in those moments, I was like letting them down, like, because I'm not telling this dude to stop. I'm not loudly telling him to stop. It's like, I'm more worried about embarrassing him than getting him to stop what he's doing. And it felt like so cowardly later. So I don't know. I mean, I just think talking about this stuff, I'm able to talk about it out loud and be like, well, that's ridiculous, Kate. Like, no, he is like a sleazy dude. And you like,
when I found
you
out,
do what you do in the moment, because you don't know what will happen next. And unfortunately, women and men and non-binary people, and I mean, we all can be put in these positions where it is scary to stand up. You don't know what this other person is capable of. So whatever you do in that moment is,
and I should say,
is the right thing for you.
Specifically when it comes to dealing with your stuff, if it involves another person, a perpetrator, there you go. Just pushing the microwave for a good old sniff.
I am very drippy right now.
learning the ropes. I should say, if someone else is involved in your story and you telling your story risks outing them or risks making your life worse. You try to get your water down?
I feel like I still heard it a lot.
I think it's because your earphones are more sensitive than you think.
Listen,
and it's a good thing, so you're not catching all your noises.
Okay, yeah. Well, hey, listen, if you can hear it, just ignore it for a moment, okay?
Yeah. No, I think, because for me, in my story, I still have not, I've only outed this person to my family and the ones I care about. So like my mom, my dad, my brother, you, my grandma knew before she passed.
Your sister knows.
My sister knows. I don't think anyone else knows. Maybe a cousin or two.
And what is so fucked about that individual actually is when you told me who it was, I sent them a message, and I did it, one, because I was pissed. Pissed. But I also did it because we saw this person regularly due to a situation.
Somewhat regularly. Oh, yes.
Due to a situation we were in.
You're right.
In that moment, we saw them regularly.
That is right.
I would almost argue possibly daily. And so I sent the message to say, hey, I know what you did, you foul piece of shit. From now on, when you see us, turn the other way. Don't engage with us. You don't fucking know us.
Yeah, you...
Like, I put my fucking teeth into this message. I mean, I was pissed. And I was so mad that their response was very much like, Logan knew what we were doing. Mind you, this dude was like 10 years older than you.
Something like that, yeah. I
Close 8 to 10 years older than you.
Mm-hmm.
Much larger than you.
Yeah.
And like, nope, a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8-year-old, they don't know what they're doing.
No.
They don't have a choice in that. And we went back and forth. And then ultimately I just ended up blocking that person because I'm like, I don't, like, they will never actually acknowledge what they did. Because that makes them feel icky. That makes them feel like the piece of shit that they are. But for me, it was like, I need to reach out to this person because I'm going to like, I felt like I was going to like crawl out of my skin if I didn't. Like I was so uncomfortable. And I needed that person to know not to engage with us again, because up to that point.
And they haven't. They have with you?
They absolutely did approach at a funeral that we went to, and I did not like that. I did not like that.
Forgot.
And they're lucky that I am a...
But since then?
Well, I don't even know that they could. I have that person blocked.
Okay.
I don't know if you do or not. But regardless...
Yeah, the point I was making is you are totally allowed to do whatever you feel comfortable with, I think. If you want to out this person, because that is what your... recovery process requires, absolutely do that, I think.
Yeah.
If it requires you to retain the identity of this person because of your personal security or your own mental health and anxiety and all that good stuff, which is part of the reason why I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to drag my family into that because I don't know how much good will come of it. And there again, though, going back to your point, as someone who is so vocal about this, am I a willing participant if this person is still doing this to other people?
Right.
Which I don't truly think that is the case, because I think this was a case of like early in life stuff and not, like, I don't know, but I don't want to speak. I don't want to speculate, I guess.
Yeah.
But there is a part of me that has felt that way of like, do I have a responsibility of being someone with knowledge to protect other people? And I think you can think about that, and that could be a deciding factor for you. But ultimately, I think when it's your story, you do what's right for you.
Right.
And you need to not truly think about what is the marketability of this to other people?
Right.
It is your fucking story.
Did I ever tell you what that guy said to me whenever I texted him the next day? Like, hey, why did you do that? Did I ever tell you what he said?
I don't think so.
He literally was like, he was so apologetic because he was nervous that I was going to tell people.
Or the police. Well, I don't know what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. He was like, I'm so sorry. I just really have a thing for butts. And I'm like, cut your fucking hands off.
Oh
like,
my God, dude.
Are you good? Like, you have a problem with butts? Literally everyone has them. So cut your hands off. Don't go in public.
I didn't know that.
Like, what a stupid fucking thing to say.
See, now that's where my dark humor wants to kick in. And that's where it's like, I have to reserve it on the show, I think.
Yeah, just for like a hot sec. We just gotta
Yeah, I know. I know. I would say, I do have a juicy butt. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I did. I still do. I always have. But I get to say who gets to touch it.
Yeah.
And just because you like butts,
Yeah. No, that's
a weird thing to
atrocious
even say back to me.
Yeah.
You could have just literally apologized over and over and over again.
Good Lord. I did
and
not
said you would
know
never do that again. Alas.
Yeah.
It was not the case. But yeah, so I just think that after you were able to kind of tell me about all of that stuff, I think that was a big catalyst for us in having a better relationship with each other. I feel like it gave you the permission from yourself to say, like, this thing was really hard for me. I'm really struggling with it. And that let you to then tell me when other things were really hard and you were really struggling with it. And then we were able to, like, get you on a path of healing by talking about it, but then also, like, medication and ketamine therapy and all of the things that you've done that now, and sober living, like, all these things you've been able to accomplish in the last couple of years that have really seemed to help you kind of maneuver through the shitty parts of life a little easier. Not that it's always fucking easy, but it seems like you don't feel quite as alone.
Yeah.
And I know that since I've been struggling a lot, I feel like the hardest times for me have been in the last, like, 8 or 9 months.
Okay. Yeah. I can feel it too.
And I think for me, like, being able to talk about it, and having a partner that sees me when I'm struggling and is able to pick up all of the effort whenever I need to, like, just go lay down and be sad, has been a blessing for me. Because I don't know. I've had so many people let me down, people that I feel like I really, really pour into and I give a lot. And then it feels like something switches for them. And it is so easy to just kind of discard me. And that has really... it just feels like it just keeps getting harder to move forward from that. And to not just be really, really hurt all the time. And then just, I don't even want to know people because I'm just waiting for them to decide that their life is, like, just as good if I'm not in it. And I feel like that's not a thing that I dealt with for the first 20 years of my life, you know? So I don't know. I've been really, really struggling with that. And I think I'm hopeful that having this time to sit down and just talk to you and have this platform where other people could reach out and maybe they have similar struggles that I have and we can just kind of lean on each other too. I'm hoping that will make it a little easier because I've just really, I feel like
you're looking for connection outside of me,
and,
that,
like,
I can't,
safe connection, because I feel like everyone that I keep choosing in my life, thinking they're safe, they end up not. They end up just being people that take and take and take. And as soon as I'm like, hey, I think that maybe you're taking a lot from me, and you're and
they're going.
Then they're like, oh, she's caught on.
It is so. I feel the same thing a lot when it came to friends, to where at this point, you know me, like, it is. It's okay. It is so hard for me to feel like I can make friends too that are meeting me where I'm at. And, you know, I have 3 kids. I've always been ambitiously driven to do things. And so when we do have friends come along, it's fun, but it's like we can't retain them. And it's not because we're mean or anything like that. It's because we want to be our fun, fast moving life. And we have kids. And I think a lot of our friends, It's just like you go through this phase where, and I think that's what we're in right now. Especially, again, moving out here where we don't know anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, we do now. We know a few people. But I've always kind of been a hermit.
Well, and I feel like there's a difference between meeting people and like hanging out a little bit
Sure.
and then just kind of deciding like maybe this isn't working or maybe
Yeah.
we just have too many differences and it fizzling out. And I just feel like I have, unfortunately, the last like 3 or 4 friends that I have really poured into for, months and months or, a year or 2 years or whatever. And it's like, man, you know me so like intimately, like how I feel about things, how I treat people, how empathetic I am, that I'm like really going to ride for you if you need somebody in your corner. And I think that's where the hurt comes. If I hang out with somebody and it just doesn't work, that's fine. Like I probably don't like you either. That's fine. But when it's someone that I just feel like, and this last one just really,
there's a sense of betrayal because you feel like, I know everybody says you shouldn't expect things out of a friendship, and to an extent I do agree, but you also like, I do think you should expect friendship out of a friendship. You should expect some sort of reciprocity. I think if you say, well, you shouldn't expect, then I don't know what kind of friendship you have.
Yeah.
But the deep friendships I've always had, it was a mutual respect and reciprocity.
Yeah. And if we
Until
have
it
a
wasn't, I guess.
disagreement, because everybody does, that's like a normal human thing. You're not going to find someone that you agree about every single instance with. But if you have a disagreement with someone, my gauge for whether or not you care is if you're willing to talk about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, because we can shoot the shit about whatever gossip or, again, I love anytime someone's got something to tell me. Like,
you do love tea.
I love it. I do, because my life is otherwise quite boring. I stay home. I don't have work gossip. I hang out with 3 kids all day. So when someone has something to tell me, I'm like, oh my God, let's hear it.
Yeah.
And I just feel like if we have a disagreement about something, then we could just talk about it and move forward. I am almost like forgiving to a fault. So even if you really hurt my feelings about something, I want to tell you that you've hurt them. I really just want you to acknowledge that you did it.
Yeah.
And that you're sorry and you didn't mean to hurt my feelings that way. And then we can move on.
Yeah.
But when I say to you, hey, this thing really hurt me,
Yeah.
or this, I don't understand why you did this thing or why you're acting this way. When I'm met with, cool, we'll just part ways.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It feels as, your value.
I'm like,
just
oh my
wasn't-
gosh.
You start to reassess, what did you value me before?
Yeah. Like, did you only want me to buy you coffee and like hype you up?
Yeah.
Because I was also happy to do that.
Yeah.
But then when you hurt my feelings, and I'm telling you hurt my feelings, and then instead you're like, I think that we both be better off going our separate ways. I'm like, I'm not better. I'm not better off.
Yeah.
My feelings are really hurt. So I don't know, man. I just feel like I have really, this last friendship that just ended without any sort of closure or conversation or whatever, it has rocked me as a 33-year-old harder than anything has rocked me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I was trying to say is, I don't think it was this person. This person was way younger than you. I think you were at way different stages in life. It was fun, for sure. But I don't think I think what you struggle with, again, from my perspective, is the abandonment thing. And that's what I felt a lot, again, with my brother, all the divorces that I've gone through. So I can relate on that level. And that's what I see when you feel so hurt by the fact that someone can just discard you so quickly. I think it's because you feel abandoned and not loved on that level by humanity, by other humans.
Yeah.
You do by me, but we've had this talk. Like, I can give you everything I can give you in the world, but I can't be a non-husband friend.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's where we've talked before, where it's like, if I can meet up with if I can meet up with a friend to go do something,
Mm-hmm.
even though I'd rather hang out with you and get a babysitter, when I hang out with you, I am always your wife. I'm always the mom of your kids. We are always in our, like, these are the stresses that we have currently.
We're in our element of, even when it's a good element.
Yeah. But if it's
still,
it's like, I'm going to be with you and I'm going to be thinking, is he stressed about work? Is he stressed about finances? Is he feeling good mentally? Is he okay with what our kids are doing? Like, where are you at?
You're not girl talking.
Right. But then I have like my one very dear friend that I've had since the 4th grade. And when I can have a moment with her, I am the kid that I feel like I have lost since becoming a mom.
Yeah.
Where, like, a lot of times now in my life, I'm so wrapped up in being there for our kids or being there for you that, like, I don't even remember at the end of the day what I like as an individual person.
Yeah.
I am always thinking about you or them or whatever. And anything that I try to think about on my own feels really selfish in this way of, like, I shouldn't be doing that.
Because you stepped into such a role as a caregiver.
Yeah. And so when I can have those moments with friends, those are the times when I just, like, really get to be me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it feels like this other layer of sadness and grief when these friendships dissolve, because it's like,
they're taking that
man, for the last year and a half that we were really good friends, I got to experience me for that year and a half.
Yeah.
Also, I got to do those things with you as me.
Yeah. You did so many cool things last year. You lost so much weight by training hard. You did the Spartan races, which you thought you would never do.
Yeah.
You accomplished so much.
I did 2 half marathons. Like, and some of this stuff I did with that person. And so it just feels like all of that was ripped from me. Not just the friendship.
Yeah.
But also that.
The self-exploration.
Yeah. That I just hadn't gotten to have for a really long time. So yeah. We'll get through it. But
and again, I think that.
But a girl is struggling right now. So.
You do. Yeah. And I think that's, again, another part of why we wanted to do this was not only to force us to sit down. Yeah, I'd be curious what runtime we're at. We have a clock coming next week to put on the wall. Oh, shit. We're at about an hour 15. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We'll wrap it up here. But yeah, I think I wanted to be able to sit down and talk with you on a regular basis. And so this would force us to do that. Because again, these are the times I feel the best. I cry, we laugh, we connect. This is the time we get to look into each other's eyes. And there was so, I feel like so many years where we went in our 17-year span where it's like, I just look around and think, I haven't just looked you in the eyes.
Yeah.
Because we just go through our lives and work and then deal with the kids and then we're cooking and we're looking at the TV and we never just sit and talk and look at each other. And I think that's important just alone. If literally no one else out there listens to this and we bought these mics, I set up this lighting and we just do this for each other, I'm happy doing that.
Yeah.
And because at the end of the day, not only do we have whatever these recordings turn into so that we could look back on them when we're older and reminisce. I think that'd be fun. And then 2, this is what a great catalog of content to give your kids, to let them know this is what your dad went through. This is what your mom went through. And this is a moment in time where you can remember this is how your mom and dad talked to each other. They've always loved each other. I don't know. There's a relic part of this that I'm excited to do. So, but I hope, that said, I hope a lot of you listen, and I hope a lot of you write into the show trying to remember. We have 3 emails now. So if you do,
you have it at the end of the episode.
I do. We have a little thing. I don't know if
Would
I'm
you
going
like to say it again?
Yeah, just on the pilot, just to let everybody know. So it's not so concise here. If you do have a story, whether it be trauma, or it could be trauma or triumph, if it's a good thing or a bad thing, just something you want to get off your chest.
Thing, if it's an adult thing,
doesn't matter. If it's something that you feel like you just want to talk about, you can be anonymous. We are going to try our best to get back to every email as quickly as we can and be thoughtful with it.
Yeah. And the emails that we do share on the show, whether you ask to be anonymous or not, we always will just keep them anonymous. I think that's just the easiest thing to do. I don't want anybody to feel okay about us reading their story and then us do it. And then they're like, oh my God, wait, no, I don't want you to do that.
No, that's fair. That's good.
I think we'll always just keep everything anonymous that we read out on the show. But we thought that could be a good way for people to feel heard and to get that connection also is for us to read some of these that get sent in and then just kind of talk about them and then, leave it open for people to then comment in, I think we're going to put together a Facebook group for listeners.
We definitely want a space. Right now we think it's Facebook.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something else. I don't know. Happy to hear what you guys think would be better. If it's not that, it would be private. It's not going to be open. It'll be a thing where we'll figure that out. But we do want a safe space, so to speak, for people to come and know when you come into this room, it's not about fucking memes. It's not about being savage. It's not about mic dropping on the internet. This is a place
where... It's not
where
a political space.
Absolutely not even a religious space. Like, I know there's going to be religious trauma, which is, I think, something we have to be careful one way or the other with.
Yeah.
But it's still valid trauma. But we will do our best to keep this show as a place of comfort and openness for us all to just talk. Again, just talk. I think I went this whole show without my necklaces that were tucked into my shirt. Damn it. I didn't even show the drip this whole damn show. So yeah, and if you do want to write in, email, it's mylife@brokennewthclub.com. And again, Kate and I are the ones reading those, and we will respond with as a thoughtful response as we can. And hopefully that is something that is cathartic for you and helpful. And if you don't want to do email, we do also have our hotline that we set up, which is pretty cool. And that is 509-850-0674. And if you want to call in, I think you have 3 minutes that you can leave a voice message. It does ring a little long. I think it rings for like 30 or 40 seconds. It rings
too long.
I don't know why. And you can't change it. I looked into it.
So hang in there.
It's set up through Google Voice. It's what we got. It works. So yeah, you have up to 3 minutes if you want to leave a voice message. I think in the coming episodes, we're going to try to maybe find some time to like put some of those in. I don't think there's a guarantee that we'll put all in, of course.
Right.
But it is a good way for us to, maybe we can gang some of these up, and this is something we can listen to in the car. It helps make it easier for us to digest this. And then you can also text us on that number as well. It'll kind of come through as the same. So,
cool.
Yes, well, I guess this is a good spot to end it. I think we went a little long. We want to try to keep these to, I think, an hour.
Yeah.
To an hour 15 is like the sweet spot.
Just felt like we had a lot to kind of get through today.
Yeah, and I don't think...
brief overview of kind of where we're at and what made us want to put this podcast together in the first place. And then, I mean, pretty much everything we talked about today, we'll have a deeper dive into it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll get into
another
all
episode. But this one we just kind of wanted, I mean, I don't even assume that people that we went to high school with remember who I am. So I just felt like people needed to get a little intro to who we are.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll even go more in depth on just the personal history. Oh shit, I was going to say something else. Damn it. I had a perfect little wrap up, but I don't know what it is now.
It's gone now.
All right.
Thanks, ADHD brain.
Exactly. It happened twice in this episode. It's going to happen some more. I know what I was going to say. So I think, so this is, I think, a great pilot, and then we will release episode 1. And I think the way we're going to do that is, originally we were thinking theming the episodes as like, divorce, high school, sexual abuse, that kind of thing. And I think instead of theming the episode, because in our conversations, they do kind of bounce, and we don't have, to keep it raw, we won't have bullet points or beats. We might have a couple, but I literally opened this up and it's blank. I didn't write a single thing down.
I didn't even pick mine up. It's on the floor.
So this was as natural as it could be. So I think the best thing we could do is maybe we will pick like a jumping off point, and like, so we'll talk about this thing in the very beginning, but wherever it takes us, it takes us. And I think that's part of the process.
It's an adventure, y'all.
Yeah. So, well, again, thanks for listening to the pilot.
Yes.
We will be on all the platforms soon, Spotify, iTunes, etc. The best thing you can do for us is to go leave a 5-star review if you like the show. Follow us on socials.
Tell your friends. We really want this to feel like a safe space. We want it to be community driven. So we really prefer that all the people that are coming from word of mouth. If you like what you've listened to, please tell your friends.
If you know a friend who maybe could benefit from being in a group that, I don't know, man. I think that's the cool thing about podcasts is when you listen to shows where other people are talking, especially one like this, if someone were listening and they had a very similar story to me or someone who writes in with a story, even though the words aren't coming out of their mouth, maybe they're sitting in their cubicle or in their semi-truck or wherever they're listening, they are still being heard. And the thoughts that they have, the anger they want to express, and whatever other people's stories that they can relate to, I think there's a sense of being heard. And I want to extend that from this show into the groups, into our emails. And we would just want to make this just a fun, safe place for people to feel comfortable. It is we want to no longer feel that broken part of ourselves. So we are the Broken Youth Club. And it's a clubhouse. Every time when I thought about this show, when I visualize it, I visualize the Little Rascals clubhouse.
Yeah.
Where they store the blur or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I want this to feel, I got up in the middle of the show to check the camera because I told you I would double check and make sure I hit record. I don't know if you could tell in my eyes, about 15 minutes in, I was like, I don't think I hit record. But I did. I did get it. So I want this show to feel raw. I don't want it to feel too scripted, and like we're all just talking. Campfire sesh almost.
Yeah, and we are all, especially me, very vulnerable. So please be nice to us.
Please.
Because your girl can just barely handle it.
Yeah. Okay? I know I say like a lot. I'm working on that.
I'm a girl. Yeah.
We'll get it. This is the pilot. This is your first time behind. This is your first time behind mic, really, other than the couple tests that we did, right?
Yes.
I think you're natural.
Wow. Thanks.
I think you do. I think you're doing a great job so far.
Oh, you too.
Thank you. All right. Well, I guess this has been the Broken Youth Club, right?
Sure has.
Is that how we're going to end it? How should we end it?
I always end a phone call with K, love you, bye.
K, love you, bye. All right, everybody.
Love you, bye.
We'll see you. We will see you next week. Let's try that again. Let's back up.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to end the fucking pilot that way.
Sure.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Okay, love you, bye.